What is telemental health and why should you bother finding out about it? There are some times in life when you want some help, professional help, with a problem in your life, but for whatever reason, you're not able to get reliably and easily to a therapist's office. For example, you might have extreme anxiety like agoraphobia, where you're afraid to leave the house, in which case it can be helpful to have telemental health, which is usually therapy over video, phone, text, or email. Also, if you have an injury or an illness that impedes your movement or makes it hard to get where you need to go, then you might consider telemental health. Also, if your childcare needs are somewhat unreliable and you have older children who can kind of be left alone for about an hour, that might be a good situation as well. You might also have a really busy schedule and have a hard time getting to the appointments reliably, or you might live in a really remote area where it would take a ton of time to get to the office. And finally, it's just more convenient for some people. They like being comfortable in their own homes and they like having that familiar surroundings when they're challenging themselves with personal issues. So all of those are good indications that telemental health might be good for you. However, sometimes there are things that might get in the way. And so if you're someone who is going through a really, really hard time and you can't rely on yourself to not do something self-destructive like abuse drugs or alcohol and get into really bad situations that way, or if you are feeling like hurting yourself or other people and you're cutting or burning yourself, then it's probably a good idea to get some help in person because that can be more stabilizing and there's not all these other layers of unfamiliarity to get used to. And so if you're going through that, A, I'm sorry, and B, it might be a better idea to try to get help in person, if at all possible. Other things to consider are the security of the means by which you're communicating. Because if you're doing good therapy, you're really reaching in and doing personal things. You're talking about some very serious issues. And if you're talking via Skype or some other unsecured way of communicating with your therapist, then people could hack you, and that information is not private and secure. So it's better, I think, to have a HIPAA compliant platform. And I use Secure Video, which uses Zoom, and it is HIPAA compliant. Now, nothing is foolproof, and theoretically it could still mess up, but with the HIPAA compliance, you have a much less severe chance of being hacked. And so that's what I recommend if you're doing video therapy. Other things are you comfortable with technology, using it, and do you feel comfortable talking to someone over a medium like email or text or video? Because some people, usually kind of older people, don't feel comfortable with that. They're not used to that. They'd much rather have the one-on-one. However, it seems like younger people are what they call digital natives, and they usually feel more comfortable communicating over electronic ways. So that's one thing to consider. Another is, how is the quality of your Wi-Fi? Do you have reliable, consistent bandwidth, and are you able to communicate effectively through that means? Sometimes people have a little bit of shyness, a little bit of reticence when they're communicating over the internet, And so if that's you, then it might not be great for you. Also, if someone is using, like, let's say, video games and they're gaming really hard and they're using up all the Wi-Fi in your house, then that would not be good because we need a fluid way to communicate over the internet if we're doing video therapy. Finally, will you be left alone for about an hour or so? Sometimes people with little kids, they just walk in, they don't really have boundaries yet. Or, sometimes older people don't have very good boundaries either, and they just interrupt the session. So if you're not likely to have privacy and someone who will respect that for an hour you're going to be in a kind of private situation, then it might not be great to do it, at least at home or in the office. Like if you're working on some really heavy grief or trauma work, it might be good to be at home instead if you're going to be really upset and it's going to interrupt your work. Um, there are some considerations about whether insurance will cover it. Some insurance companies are forward thinking and they cover telemental health, others not so much. And sometimes even within the same plan, like Blue Cross or Blue Shield, they might cover one person's plan for telemental health, but not someone else's. And I don't know what determines that, but if you want your insurance to cover it, we can find out whether that is the case. Um, Finally, do you live in the state where your provider is licensed? I'm licensed in California, and that's it. So if you're in California, I'd be happy to talk to you. But let's say you're in Nevada or Arizona or Maryland or any of the other states, unless I'm licensed there, I can't really provide long-term therapy for you. So you want to make sure that that is going on, that you are not violating the laws um, by doing therapy over state lines without having the proper licensure. So if any of those things is going on for you, that's one thing to kind of check out before you do telemental health. But overall, I'm very excited about it, and I think it's going to be the wave of the future for psychotherapy and coaching. And I think it's a great way to help more and more people and allow people in remote areas to get the help that they want and need. And so if you're interested in pursuing this, I'd be happy to talk to you. My number is 661-233-6771. Again, 661-233-6771. I look forward to talking to you soon.